Okay, welcome back. Episode 4. You can see I'm just cutting out the boxing off the edge of this, off the face of this RHS. Now, one of the things I wanted to explain to people a bit better was the dangers of cutting RHS. I'll put this in here because it pinches up. So I wanted to show people, I've marked these out about every 300 mil all the way along, and also every halfway, so about 150 mil. If the profile is 150, you're really only going to get 150 before it wants to pinch. So I've done it here, and you can sort of see right in there. You can see I've left about a pen width, like I said. And there's about a pen width, and in there that's about 150 mil. There's another pen width. Now I'm just gonna tap this gently. Bam, it's pinched in straight away. Can you see that? I'll get this disc. There, it's not even going through. So versus over here where I have cut, and it is going through, versus where, so if that grabs your disc while you're cutting, that's going to send your grinder straight either into you or away from you. Now, the best thing you can do, obviously, is when you're grinding, grind on the back of the disc. See how the back of the disc in like that, and you grind away from you, so if it does grab, it's pulling away, versus if you're doing it like this, and it grabs, it'll come back to you. So always lay it as flat as you can. Now, another little trick I've picked up over the years as well is if you're grinding or marking out first, so you can sort of see in the sunlight there, hopefully you can, that line there is nice and straight on this side, versus that line there, which is a little bit more wobbly. So that's the result of holding it up and trying to line it up with the edge of that radius, versus resting your glove and having another hand on the back of the grinder and dragging the grinder along. So if this grabs, it goes that way, but you're also using the slide of the glove to just pull yourself along. Difference between a straight cut and an amateur cut. So I thought I'd show that. Alright, I'm not going to time lapse this. I'll just cut it out, and this is obviously the first side, yeah, we'll clamp it to the chassis and mark out. Okay, we're all cut out. Sorry for the wind, it's really bad. I got my money out of that cutting disc. So, but yeah, we're all done. So now I'm going to clamp this up. Obviously, got to now take it all apart, but I'll clamp it up. Okay, we've taken the body off again. This is the 37 Ford cross member that I'll be grafting in once it's boxed up. I was just getting busy, just taking all the bits of crap off it, getting these old engine mounts, and you can sort of see it needs a couple of repairs. Obviously one here, and won't worry about that side. Nice big repair here, again another farm boy garbage repair there. So I've probably got to take that whole section out on the top and probably down the side. So this is actually this is 2.5 mil, and I've got the some 2.5 mil pieces just sitting over there in the white, just under the white section there, some RHS. So I'll just be able to use that 2.5 mil. Again, another repair needed here. The rest of it's fairly decent. Probably I'll probably got to put a hole saw over that little hole there, and then drill the same hole saw out again and just weld that in. But a really interesting thing with this is that it came with a really good brake pivot. Here we are. Came with a really good brake pivot. So they're fairly rare in that kind of condition. So I'm gonna sell that. Hopefully recoup some funds. And then in this, I'll just put some spreaders, probably some steam pipe or something between them, and just to get that bracing back. But this is a good piece, a little repair there. It's in fairly good condition. Under here, a minor thinking, but again, I'm not using the hairpins or the radius rods, so I'll just make a little bracket to go over that. Again, out of some 2 mil and just bolt it in, and we'll just leave that like that. I think not really a problem. And I've also got a these these holes actually end up being cut through to fit the chassis. I've already sort of pre-mounted it, so I'm going to have to actually cut these out, and I want to move these down because I'm going to need them for my exhaust throughs. Again, I have to cut that out, move it up here, because I don't want the exhaust running under the chassis. I want the exhaust running through the chassis. You know, this is a nice spot for a muffler or something in here. So yeah, all right, it's time to get this clamped up. I'll do that now, and then yeah, I'll see you in a quick bit. So I've cut the front section off here, obviously because it tapers. As we can see, it sort of tapers up, so I'll work on this one separately. This is where the chassis starts to taper, so that's where I've taken that's where I've just clamped the piece to here. And we can see now that I've got a fairly good, let me see if I can focus that bit better. There we go, try that. So you can see it's fairly good all the way out. That runs pretty much all the way underneath till we get to the next taper, which is here. And we can see it starts to come back in again. So what I'm going to do, if you can sort of see here, I had to notch out around for this obviously. Down where the bottom of that cut is probably the line I need to cut at. So that's actually not a bad marker. I'll take that and I'll run with that, and then I'll do the back. Now the good thing is that this kind of stops here, and it stops maybe here. Now that's fairly close. So what I don't want to do is I don't want to have another vertical here, or you know, close to in this comp. So if my that's you can see the heat shadow there of the compensation plate behind. So you really don't want another vertical anywhere near so that. So the next vertical should be there, or here's what I'm thinking. I'm actually going to run a horizontal. I'll just leave it like that. I'll trim this out. I'll take this piece, I'll put it on top, and I'll mark this section out here. So again, just don't put a vertical directly in front of that. It's not good practice. Just offset it outside the compensation plate. So my next vertical has to be either here or here, and I've got to be honest. Well, you know what? Let's test whether the vertical should be there or not, because I've got this piece here off the front. So if the next vertical was there, roughly. No, I'm not clear at all. So I can't really make that out of one piece. So the vertical probably have to be, if I put that there. Man, that's a real bummer. It's pretty close, maybe to there. The next vertical would have to be there, and the other one is, the current one is there. So I don't know, offsetting, it's a bit close. Let's see what we get. You get what you get, and you don't get upset. But that's the rest of the boxing there. So like I said, you can really see the taper there. I've got to get around. You can sort of see on this side here a bit clearer. There's this, I don't know what it is, like a flange or something. So the boxing's going to have to come up to that notch over that and come straight up. And then on this side, I'm just going to come down and form a triangle. Not triangle, like just angle it forward like that as one square piece. Yeah, so now I guess it's time to get marking up. So we just hold steady. What did I say? I wanted the bottom of that cut. So that's the bottom of the cut there. Oh, and that lined up perfectly. Okay, next one. I'll line that up later. Coming up to there, and then underneath, I'm going to put the pen right inside that gap because I don't want to be. I want to get a bit of that edge of the flange exposed. for welding. Otherwise I'll just butt welding instead of having a good, and that goes to there. Oh, can you just see that little bit hanging under there? What a pain in the ass that is. How do I even get the pen in there? I can't even get the pen in there. Alright, I'm going to have to take it from here, and I'll mark up and I'll line it up with that when I cut. I have to remember what I write in there. Alright, cut line. Okay. Trying to take it all apart now and yeah, hop to it. Alright, there's the bad boy there cut out. Now I've got to do this one, this little one here. So again, from that point, I'm overlapping them ever so slightly. Oh, look at that, man. I've just got to rip it. These are pretty much brand new gloves. Never mind. So just overlapping them, because then what I'll do is I'll clamp this one in, and then I'll clamp this one up here, and then I'll just put a cut down so they butt up properly, bad Chad style. Okay, so next on the list here is to mark up. Now obviously I've got some sort of garbage going on in the middle here, as you can see. Like, I'm not going to be able to fit over that quite nicely, and it tapers a fair bit, so excuse the fingers just while I put this cap on here. Okay, so I'm going to come in here and I'm going to again mark out as low as I can with this pen, because I want some of this chassis edge exposed for welding. Right down in there. Alright, very good. And now I've got to come up underneath, but I've also got to mark out where I need to notch, because I need to notch over this. So sorry it's so dark. I'm looking into the light here. Up as high as I can as well. As high as I can. This pen doesn't want to work on that angle. Let's try that. There we go, that's better. Okay, that should be good. Again, I've marked out where I need to start notching from. And this one's cut out. So you can sort of see it slots in there. It's going to be a little bit weird because I've got this this kind of turn down here. That's for the original cross member. I'm probably just going to put a pie cut. Hang on, I'll make this a bit nicer for everyone. I'm going to put a little pie cut just in here, and I'm just going to bend this up and put a bead of weld on the outside, just so I can get this flat and level, because where this comes back down at this end over here, we can see that it's right just touching the insides there. So that's nice and close, just touching, and that'll give me good penetration into the corners for welding. Now, it's all well and good to turn around and say, okay, well now I've got all my pieces, it's time to weld it in. Not yet. What I really want to do is I want to weld in some captive nuts on the inside for the suspension, both here and, hang on a minute, and at the rear here. So where those perches come up here, I want to weld some captive nuts in there as well. I'm not particularly au fait with welding really thick stuff like those mounts, which are, you know, over 7mm to 3mm. I also don't think that's very good practice, so I will be bolting instead of welding, spring washers, etc, etc, etc. I've also got to relocate the mounting holes for that steering system. So again, going, oh, right. Again, this was here, and the mounting hole was here. So where this comes up level with that mounting hole here. So if that's the distance, then all these holes have to be relocated exactly that distance forward to bring the steering box up level to eliminate my bump steer. So remember, the boxing that I had to do was to come, I guess looking at it this way, was to come across, in on a 45, laminate the back of that, in on a 45, laminate the back behind this, and then 45 up again and straight. So that'll happen now here. But I've got to set these in place. So that will be my next job, and also drilling these out to accommodate the size of bolt that I need, and then I'll buy the nuts. So these are the nuts here that I'll be using. You can see they've got a nice flange on the base there. So when they go in, they form a nice little base for me to put a bead around and weld it to the chassis there. And then I'll just screw in through there like that instead. So I prefer using captive nuts with really thick steel. I know some people would prefer me to pop rivet them or hot rivet them back in. Sorry, not pop rivet, God. But I'm not going to rivet them anymore. I'm just going to bolt. So that'll go up there nicely. All the captive nuts in place. And I've got my exact distances, which is kind of odd actually, because that's a factory hole. I remember I drilled that one because that was the other mount here for the center line for the engine mount. So I drilled that, but this one's factory. So lucky me, I guess. And these are the first sections tacked in. So obviously I've still got to move the steering box for this side, but this is the other side. So what I'm doing is I'm starting at this end because I don't want overlap here. So I'm starting at this end and I'm just tacking away and sort of peeling it, sort of feathering it back to a certain point. And then once it crosses that line there, anything that crosses the tip of this this angle here, I'll just put a zip cut down, and then I'll butt that one up to it down there, and then tack along as I go. So all the clamps are now on the outside, and I'm just moving forward. So this one I'm going to leave right to the very end because I'll probably put maybe another tack up here. I'll weld this one in. Obviously, like I said, I've got a heavy look under here. You can see this feather's down for the original cross members, so I'm going to put a pie cut here, tap this up and weld that shut, which is fine. Then I'll do some corrective welding under here. And then from here I will pie cut it, and I'll leave that whole section open for the steering box, and I'll come back to it. So Alright, so welding time. Okay, so this next section of boxing is in, so we can see the overlap. I'm going to need to just zip out here, but that's okay. I've got this in here so I can tap this down because obviously it wants to pop in. Now, earlier I was talking about having both edges of the boxing exposed, like the edge of this and the edge of this, and this is kind of where I wanted to really highlight to you what I was talking about. So if I push that in there, you can see that I've got the edge on the top and the edge on the side here exposed. That'll allow me to run a good bead of weld in there the whole way along, and obviously underneath as well, and that will have excellent penetration. I won't need to worry about anything other than really than pinholes. You can also see that the top of the chassis here is fairly straight. Obviously it's pushing away there because I've got that under there to stop it slotting in and not allowing me to push it down. But when that pushes up there, you can see that it's all exposed like that, which is excellent. That's exactly what we want. And underneath though, you can sort of see where some of the bash outs have occurred, or some of the pull outs. So I'll just have to tack, I guess, either side of that and knock it up. There's a little bow here in the bottom of the chassis, but the rest of it's fairly good. So, all right, onto this is all tacked in, as you can see. Again, I only tacked to here. I cut that. Where's that other section? I've left it somewhere. I don't even know what I'm doing with my stuff. There it is. So I cut that section out there because I'm going to have to 45 it in, laminate that, and come back out again for the steering box. Again, not a problem. So yeah, these you can sort of see why I wanted to start here, because I didn't want to be fussing around as it sort of tapered up, as it did this. I didn't want to be fussing around doing this sort of stuff to try and get it to sit level. So that's done first. That's my line, and oddly enough, that is really, really close to where the engine crossmember is going to sit. So I think the engine crossmember is actually meant to sit in line with these holes here, which is just hiding under that clamp there. So that'll allow me to really strengthen that corner with extra welding. So, all right, next step is to weld this properly. And I've just realized that I haven't actually welded these bottom ones, these bottom plugs in here. However, because these springs are shot and these are so hard to find, I'm having to look at Austin springs, Morris springs. I'm having to look at Chevy springs and Plymouth springs. Everyone's like, just get them reset. That's great where you live in the world. Where I live in the world, there's like a 2 or 3 month waiting list just for any labour in this state. So I've got to get on with this. So I've got to find something else that fits. Even Suzuki Sierra springs, I think the early ones fit this as well, and Series 1 Land Rovers as well. It's the same. So the issue is they're 1 3/4, not 2 1/4 or 2 inch. So yeah, I think I'm just going to have to suck it up and do it the other way, the way I said I didn't want to do it, which is to drill a hole the size of that nut, and then sort of, I guess, if I can put this camera will focus, sorry about this. Let's try this here instead. You can sort of see that I'll drill a hole the size of the nut, I'll slide the nut into the chassis, and then I'll weld that side of the nut, the outside of that nut to the chassis, and then that'll give me enough clearance to the thread when it's sitting under there to then screw those perches in. That's the only way I'm going to be able to do it and keep moving. Otherwise, I'll be waiting months for these things to be reset and rebrushed, etc. So yeah, onwards and upwards. All right, like I said, let's hop to it. Alrighty, tacked in place. Yes, I am using a gasless MIG. The reason for that is, you can tell I am welding outside. It is very, very windy here, as you can always hear through the microphone. MIG just doesn't cut it. I end up with very porous welds, and I've welded in this carport with a MIG before, and it's just horrible. The gas just gets blown away. So I'm using this. So if you don't like it, well, that's kind of too bad. So I am probably going to leave this video here. I've shown a fair bit about how to sort of get these rails in place. Obviously, I've still got to smash the bottom edge of that rail up, just tap it up to meet. You can sort of see it's actually hanging down a fair way. It's a bit more than I originally thought. You can sort of see the gap there as well. It's not that great. So they're all going to have to be tapped up, and I'll tackle that, and then I'll do the other side, and I'll come back and we will talk about the relocation of the steering box and all that jazz next video. And of course, hopefully once that's relocated, I might even in the next video show how I do this rear cross member and how I fit this and the sort of junctions I come up with and stuff. So that's that for this one. Please remember that you might like the video, which is wonderful, but the algorithm doesn't know that. So if you do see what you see is what you like, I know it's kind of daggy. I'm a Gen Xer myself, but if you just hit that like button, even the subscribe, if you want to get regular updates, it would help the channel's visibility immensely. So thank you very much, and yeah, I'll see you next episode. Good luck.